name is Christy. Welcome to my corner. Thank you for joining me today on this Flosstube Saturday. It's usually Flosstube Friday, but things have been happening in my world, and so it is Flosstube Saturday, and this is Flosstube number 55, and I'm so happy to have you joining me today. I have a lot to talk about, I think. I have all sorts of, well, I have finished objects, I have a whip, I have plans, and 4 cross-stitch design reveals, which means that I have 4 giveaways, so you can, stick around for that. I have plans and a book update. There's a lot going on. So this is going to be a jam-packed episode. So grab a drink and settle in with your stitching, I think. I think this is going to be one of those episodes. But before we get to any of that, I want to welcome my new subscribers. Thank you so much for joining me on my artistic and crafty adventures. And welcome back to anyone who's been hanging out with me for however long you've been with me. It's been so nice to get to know you in the comments here on YouTube and also on Instagram. And if you're not following me on Instagram, you can find me at Dr_Christy. I'll put that right here. And that's where I post, just a couple pictures a day about my daily life and stitching. And lately I've been posting some past finished and fully finished objects that I stitched, a year or 2 ago that you may not have seen. So if you want to see what I'm doing during the week, you can check out my Instagram. It'll be great to hang out with you there. This is a channel about embroidery and cross stitch and other textile crafts and baking and history and the history of all of those things. So if you are interested in any of that and you're not subscribed, I'd love to have you subscribe and stick around. And speaking of subscribers, I've gotten a influx of new people. So welcome to all the new people. Jody at Trixie Tricycle said some really nice things about me. I hope I can live up to what she said about me. So thanks, Jody, for saying all those nice things. And I agree that if we were closer, we'd be stitchy partners, I think. So thank you, Jody, for saying all those nice things about me and for enabling me for some purchases that I will talk about later. And also welcome to everybody who popped over from her channel. I'm really happy to have you, and I hope I'm not disappointing. I guess that's kind of what I want to say. I don't usually do a best new thing. I think Michelle G, Bendy Stitchy possibly started this, and other Flosstubers have been doing it too. And I don't know that it will be a regular segment in my Flosstubes, but I did want to do a best new thing because I found, and it's not stitchy related at all, I found the best glass nail file I've ever used in my entire life. This is called, I think it's called a Trim Nano Etched Glass Nail File, and this is the retractable one. I got this at Target, so you can get it at Target. I don't have a Target near me, and I wanted more, so I got this set on Amazon. I'll link both of these down below, but essentially it's a tiny, the clicking is horrible, I'm sorry, but the etching is super, super tiny, and I didn't clean it before I showed you because I've been filing my nails with it. But it leaves your nails not just smooth, but shiny. I mean, it is amazing. It is amazing. And this set, this has 2 different ones that I'll show you. This set comes in little plastic packaging because they are glass, so they could break. This is like the buffing shining one. And then it comes with a black one and you can kind of see the etching on that, right? This one basically does like calluses and very thick nails. But that's best new thing. Glass nano etched nail files. I'll link those 2 down below. I love them. Let's talk about why I'm filming on a Saturday instead of on a Friday. Last week in my Market Street Festival video, I mentioned the ceiling fan. So essentially, we live in an old house and we upkeep it really nicely, but old houses do things. And so we have ceiling fans. I have a ceiling fan in this room. I have a ceiling fan in the bedroom and a ceiling fan in the living room. And as I was walking past through the living room, getting to the front door, I noticed that the ceiling fan was like half out of the ceiling. And I'm like, this is bad. So we emergency took down the ceiling fan and we installed the new light yesterday. And by the time we were done, it was 8 o'clock, 7:30. We hadn't eaten dinner yet. So I decided I'm not going to stay up until 1 or 2 in the morning and film a Flosstube and record it and edit it and stuff. I would just do it on Saturday and you all will be fine with it. And it got me another finish because I had time to finish my third finished object of the week. So that's the news about the ceiling fan from last week that several of you had a question about. It was very traumatic at the time, but once it came down, it was fine. You know, once it's not in imminent danger of falling, it's fine. And it was one of those like 80s brass ceiling fans. So now we have a nice modern light. So I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise because we would not have taken down the ceiling fan, you know, on our own. But now I have this light that I've wanted for a while in the living room and it makes me so happy. So now we're planning like table lamps that match. So I'm really excited. It's going to be, the space is just going to be really pretty and I'm pretty excited. This is also the last time I think I'll be filming in this corner. I have mentioned a couple times that I am creating an art studio in our tiny house. So we have, those of you who are new, I live in a 2-bedroom house and we have like a 2-bedroom rental unit that's also on our property that we don't rent out. We just have been using it for storage. But I decided that I wanted to use that space and that I would use that space as an art studio for me and then turn one of the living room, back up. I would turn the living room into like an art studio for me and the bedroom into a writing studio for my husband, who is a writer. He writes novels. I've been waiting for the storage unit that I bought to come in. It was stuck 2.5 hours from my house for a week. So it just came in today. I'm going to set that up, organize it, whatnot, today and kind of throughout the week in my downtime. And hopefully I'll be filming from over there. And this space will just be an office, which will be much more soothing for me. And in fact, there used to be a bed right here because this used to be a guest room as well. I've removed the bed and put in a reading chair and I've gotten so much reading done this week. It has been so nice. I'm thrilled. So that's the other news. So this will be the last time you see this particular corner. I don't know that you'll notice much of a difference because I'm still going to be in a pegboard corner for for my videos. I'm going to have like a filming corner, which will also be where my pegboard is. But that's kind of, I don't know, exciting. But I'm a lot in. I'm very chatty today, apparently. It's been 2 weeks, so I'm afraid it's going to be a long one. But let's get to stitching. I have 3 finished objects, and I'm super excited about them. The first finished object is my medieval bear embroidery, and this comes from a medieval bestiary. It's very bright. There we go. This comes from a medieval bestiary, which is a book of animals that, you know, was highly illustrated. It's a medieval manuscript. And I love this. I love this. And I decided that I wanted to stitch it because I like stitching medieval manuscript images. I have a couple other ones that I have posted, you know, I've had pictures of that I've put up. But this one was kind of my most complicated and it's done. So there we have my bear and my bees and the bee skeps. As you saw in the image, the background is 2 colors. It's red and kind of off-white. I wanted to make that happen without having to stitch the entire thing, right? Like I didn't want to have to stitch half of it red or half of it white, like if I did it on red fabric or white fabric. So I decided to use both kinds of fabrics. And I stitched through all of them plus a 3rd layer of cotton muslin. And the top is a red Kona cotton. The bottom is an off-white linen in the color Krista, which I got from fabricstore.com, which is where I get all my linen. They have great linen. I'll link to them down below. And this is stitched in a variety of different fancy flosses for the most part. I think there are a couple DMCs, but most of them are fancy flosses. And the wings of the bees you see are shiny. And they are done in DeVere Yarns silk in the color Biscuit. And I love how it turned out. I'm going to frame it in a rectangular frame. And it makes me very happy. And this is actually a restart because I had started this Bear and Bees a year and a half, 2 years ago. I just found it as I was kind of setting up this film, so I thought I'd show you. So this is how far I got a couple years ago, and I think of him as a medieval Winnie the Pooh, and so I put "oh bother" in writing. I don't think I'm gonna do that in the one I just did. I think it's gonna be called "oh bother," like it's gonna be titled "oh bother," but I don't think I'm gonna put it in. But I'm really pleased with how far I've come from this. I kind of got rid of it because I didn't like how it was stitching up. I think that you can see, I can see my improvement in my stitching. And so that makes me really, really happy. Yeah, so this is my old Bear and Bees. And this is my new finished Bear and Bees. I also like how many different kinds of stitches I used. So the bee skips are in a woven basket stitch. So that's actually woven, which is why it looks like a basket, which makes sense because bee skips are, well, medieval bee skips were baskets. Bee skips are baskets. And then the bear is done almost all in French knots except for his face and paws, which are in stem stitch or kind of long and short filling stitches. The table is needle painting with long and short stitch. The grass is a stem stitch. The wings, well, the bees are almost all in satin stitch and they are outlined in a stem stitch. So there's just a lot going on here and I really like it. So Bear and Bees are done. That's finished object number 1. My second finished object, and this is one of my new pattern releases. This is the Purple Murple, which I can't say without laughing. This is what the pattern looks like. The Murple in this pattern, the Murple in this pattern, come from a lace pattern book that I found at the Metropolitan Museum of Art from 1596. I have been kind of charting a lot of the different creatures in this lace pattern book because I think it's very interesting. Basically, I chart things that I want to stitch, and I wanted to stitch these lace patterns. So that's why I charted them. But I want all of the patterns to be the same size. So all of my diptychs, so 2 images from this pattern book, from this lace pattern book, they're all the same size. So they can all go together as like a unit that will look nice. You can stitch them separately, you can stitch them together, but they're all the same. Like the different diptychs are the same size. This one is no different. So what I finished is not the full pattern. So here is what I finished, which does not include the outside, like the border, and it's shifted a bit. So the boxes are different sizes, you know, than the final pattern. But this is the reason why I changed is because when I was stitching this, some things didn't work. But I also didn't want it so big because I want to turn this into a like rice eye mask that has lavender in it that you know, when you have a headache, you put on your kind of your eyes to get rid of headaches. I want to turn this into that. That's going to be the fully finished object for this piece. So I'm going to basically make a pillow, but fill it with rice and lavender. And I got some lavender as part of a wedding gift, like a lavender sachet as part of a wedding gift that I want to use. So it'll feel meaningful and also useful. I like my stitching to be useful in some way. I like that. So anyway, this is a finished object and I want to fully finish it with backing. So I'm going to put it right here. I have some options. I want to go with purple. I have this, which is the right color, but it's owls. And so it doesn't quite make sense. In fact, scrap that. No owls. I have this color, this fabric, which is the right color and I think would look very nice on the back. And I also have this fabric, which I think is hyacinths, but it's not So it's floral, which makes you think lavender fields, but it's not lavender. But it's not quite the right color. And it's a scene that it's like a whole like panel. It's like a quilt panel. So it's like a whole scene that I'm not sure I want to cut into for a small piece. So I think I've decided. Thanks for letting me talk through this with you. I think I'm going to go with this one. The colors are almost exactly the same. I mean, that's a really good match. And I think that'll look really pretty on the back. So this is going to be it. So thanks for letting me talk through it with you. This is going to be a lavender eye pillow. That's the plan. That is finished object number 2. And again, this is my purple Merple pattern, which the pattern looks like this. And I literally cannot say, think, or read purple Merple without laughing because it's so ridiculous. My final finished object is another pattern that you all haven't seen. So you've seen it if you follow me on Instagram, but I kind of decided to stitch this in the past 2 weeks and charted it and stitched it. So it has a swear word in it. If you're offended by swear words, I apologize, but I am not offended by swear words and I find this hilarious. But I do want to explain it because there was some confusion of my intent with this pattern on Instagram. So, you ready? It is a definition of the word thornback. And the first definition of thornback is a kind of ray, like a stingray, but not a stingray. But in the 17th century, it was used as a derogatory term for an unmarried woman. Okay? And so the pattern says, 1 is a ray or skate of shallow inshore waters having short spines on the back and tail. That's the first definition. 2, 17th century, a single woman having reached an age that she has no more fucks to give. So let me explain this. This comes out of a viral tweet. A woman on Twitter, whose name escapes me, but I'll put it right here. She found this definition. She found this use of the word thornback in a book she was reading. And she tweeted about it and it went completely viral. And it went viral because it's such a great word. Like, it doesn't feel offensive to me. It feels like powerful and witchy. And my friend Marcia mentioned that it feels like it's like a drag. It's like a name for a dragon, right? So it's like powerful and magic-y and witchy. And it just felt, I don't know. When I saw it, which was a while ago, I totally embraced this idea of being a thornback, right? So I got married a couple weeks ago at the age of 41 for the first time. Getting married was never a huge goal of mine. I was a perfectly happy single person. I'm a perfectly happy married person, but I got married because I found the person that I wanted to marry, not because I had ever had any like plans of getting married. If I had been single my whole life, it would have been fine. So for me, being an old maid, essentially, or a spinster, didn't bother me at all. This was kind of, for me, an homage to the 15 years when I was a thornback. I looked up thornback in the Oxford Dictionary, the Oxford English Dictionary, and the Oxford English Dictionary is amazing because it has etymology, it has how the word formed, and it has historical uses of words. The Oxford English Dictionary is not a free dictionary, so I have it through my university. I'm a history professor, and so I have it through my university. So the third definition of thornback is an old maid. That's all it says. Slang, obsolete. But then it has usages of the word. So in 1694, P.A. Matteau translated the French of Rabelais, one of his works, whether when they were maids or thornbacks in their prime or at their last prayers, meaning that like thornbacks are desperate to get married, right? They're old and desperate. I find that hilarious. And then in 1709, in the British Apollo, which was a journal, the November 23rd through 25th edition, meeting with 3 thornbacks, I treated them. I don't know what else is going on in that. But then the thing that I love is in 1898, the Daily News on March 14th said, after 25, young ladies were called Thornbacks by the much marrying Puritans of New England. The thing I love about that is that it's not you. It's saying that the Puritans like marry a lot, and clearly this is an important part of their lives, is like it's an important aspect of life. Anyway, I just find that hilarious. So a Thornback, I have reclaimed, and a lot of the women who responded in this tweet have reclaimed this word Thornback as like a powerful word, right? It's a powerful, it just sounds powerful. So this was not a dig at anyone who is unmarried. This is more for me to celebrate the years that celebrate the years I was single, and like an homage to those years when I was single. Those years when I was a Thornback, and I had 15 years of Thornback, because apparently you are an old maid, you're a spinster from 23 to 25, and then from 26 and up, you are a Thornback. So that's what this is about. And it's also an homage to the age that women, many women, when you get a certain age, we're always hit with so many social obligations, and to look a certain way and act a certain way and treat people a certain way. And I feel like many women reach an age where like they're not willing to do these things if it's not true to themselves. And that's the other thing I wanted to, celebrate, right? Are women reaching an age where we do what we want? We don't want to hurt, we don't want to hurt other people, but we also are not going to conform to what's expected of us just because it's expected of us. And I love that too. Anyway, that's where that comes from. This will also be released next week. I'll talk about it later. I'm going to finish this into a sofa pillow cover. Sofa pillow cover. I don't know why I can't say that. With black. I think I'm going to do like a outline, like a frame of black, and then black on the back. And I'm going to send it to the woman who had the viral tweet. I've already contacted her, and she wants to have it. So I'm going to send it to her, and spread the love, spread the Thornback love, because I love it. So that is my final finished object. There we go. That's 3 finished objects in 2 weeks. That is pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. And one of them was a start and finish. Look at me. So let's talk about whips. I only have 1 active whip left. I have 2 other whips that are not active at the moment, but I have 1 active whip left, and that is my temperature library pattern. I have been working on this. I've been working on filling in the shelves themselves. Ooh, that rhymed. And I'm also about halfway through September. So I usually stitch this with my mom on Sundays. We have a Stitchy Zoom on Sundays, and I work on this. And so my hope is that I can get further along in September, tomorrow, because it's Saturday, and keep working on the shelves, because adding in the shelves makes such a huge difference. And so I'm really pleased with this. This is a temperature pattern that I designed for me and my mom, and then I also have a cross stitch version. I have designed a 2022 cross stitch version, so I'll do the reveal later on in this video for that. But this one will still be available in cross stitch and in embroidery. And I'm updating the cross stitch version, so with charted numbers at the bottom, so you can interchange for the sign. So if you look at the cross stitch version, which is here, what I've done is add 1 through 9 so that you can change the plaque for whatever year you're doing. And the nice thing is, because it's just blocks, for February, you can just take one of the thicker blocks and split it in 2 for a leap year. So it's a very versatile thing, but I'm releasing a 2022 version next Friday, which I'll reveal today. And so there'll be 2 book options, and then there's a secret chart that I did a little sneak peek of in my Instagram, but you all have not seen it yet. So that will come next. This is just being stitched in DMC, and I keep it, well, I keep the DMC anyway, in my books bag. And that's that. I have a stitch that I had been working on that I'm going to UFO. I'm going to get it out of my whip pile. I'm never going to finish. Well, let me just talk about it. So it is the Wildflowers with a View. That was my full coverage experiment. There's a bet going on, a poll bet going on among some of my stitchy friends who want to know when I'm going to start my first HAID, Heaven and Earth design. A lot of the people that I stitch with on Zoom do big full coverage projects. And so before I committed to something that big, I wanted to make sure that I could actually do a full coverage. And I say this because I have a mild form of dyscalculia, which means that I have trouble counting. I have trouble counting objects. And so a full coverage is very counting heavy and confetti heavy, you know, usually. And so my question for myself was, can my brain do it? And what I discovered is that my brain can do it if I grid it in a certain way, which I'll talk about in a minute. So this was kind of my test. This was my test, and it is in the Cross Stitch, Just Cross Stitch magazine from June 2021 that I won in a giveaway from Amy, Mrs. Flossie on Flosstube. So I've been stitching this, and this is where I got. And what I have been doing is I grid every 5 holes. I can handle the 5 counting. 10 is too much. I lose count. I miscount after 10. But 5 keeps me right on target. And so I've started actually gridding everything I stitch in 5. And I have very few mistakes, which I like. So I got to this point and I was chatting with some friends about it, and my friend Julia said, "Oh yeah, it's very clear from your last video that you don't enjoy stitching that." And I'm like, huh, I don't enjoy stitching this. And it's not because it's full coverage, it's because it's just kind of boring. I mean, for me, I think, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it at the end, right? I'm not going to put it up. I don't have a beach theme, anything in my house. It's very tonal, which I think the end result is beautiful, but it's not super fun for me to stitch if I'm going to put that much time into something that I'm not going to put up in my house. So Julia saying that kind of gave me permission to UFO this. I may at some point offer it up like as a pre-started piece if anybody wants to finish it for me, because it is a really lovely pattern. I mean, if you have a beach themed anything, it's a lovely pattern, and it's almost fully kitted up. I think I'm missing one color, and it's all DMC. So I think I'm gonna put this on hold for a while, and I'm gonna put the Just Cross Stitch magazine back in my magazine pile, because there are other things in here I want to stitch that aren't full coverage. And yeah, I'm gonna let it go. Once I got this out of my rotation, I got so many other things stitched that I wanted to stitch. Why would I stitch on something that I'm not super enjoying the stitching? I don't know what I'm going to use it for, and it's taking time away from other stitching. I have limited time. So this is UFO. That's my UFO news, but I am going to keep it all together. And like I said, I might at some point do pass the stash, pass the project, if anybody else wants to stitch it. But that'll be for later. I don't have the energy to do that right now. I think we've reached the portion of our show that is the pattern reveal and giveaway. So whenever I design a new pattern, I like to give it away. And I design patterns basically that I want to stitch. So I come up with an idea, I decide I want to stitch it, I have a pattern, I figure I might as well offer it if someone else wants to stitch it. That's kind of how this works for me. I only design things that I kind of want to stitch. I have 4 new patterns, so that'll be 4 giveaways, and I will give you the secret word and general giveaway, Flosstube giveaway rules apply. Please be 18. Please don't say giveaway or free or whatever in the comments. Please be a subscriber, that kind of a thing. I don't know if I mentioned this, but they're PDF patterns, so they will just be emailed to you, and you'll get a printable PDF and also a Pattern Keeper compatible PDF in the email. So you'll get at least 2 files, although for one of them you'll get 4 files if you want them. So yeah, let's just get started. The first one is my purple Merple. See, every time, my purple Merple. This is what the pattern, just to remind you, this is what the pattern looks like in the purple colorway. But I decided to do a second free colorway that will go along with this pattern that is more realistic. So if mer people were real, what colors would they be? So more like human colors and that kind of thing. So this is what the color conversion looks like here. And if you're interested in stitching either one of these, say Merple, because Merple is hilarious. So say Merple, and you'll get both colorways. And if you don't win and want to stitch this and buy it from my Etsy shop, you'll get both colorways. So the alternate colorway is just kind of a happy free thing from me to say thanks. So that's the first one. The second one is the Thornback. So it looks like this, just to remind you. And the nice thing about this is that if you don't want to do as much stitching, you can actually just get rid of the first definition and shift up the second definition. So it'd be kind of long and skinny, or you can shift words around so that it's more square if you just want to keep the second definition. So this one is very versatile and you can kind of do it any way you want. And the Thornback word has a thorny vine on it. I thought that would be kind of a fun, just make it more interesting to a definition. So if you're interested in this one, just say Thornback in your comment and you'll be entered with the YouTube comment picker. The third pattern is the new cross stitch version of the Temperature Library. So this is Temperature Library 2, and this is for 2022. And this is what it looks like. And it is very similar to my other one. It is a temperature pattern. But the nice thing about a pattern like this is that you can stitch it for anything that you can quantify. So this is a pattern full of books. And if you don't care about your temperature for the day, like your high temperature for the day or whatever temperature for the day, and instead you keep track of how many pages you read every day, this is the kind of thing that you can also record in a pattern like this. Steps in a day. I mean, basically anything you can quantify, you can turn into a colored pattern. You just connect a quantity with a color and color it in, and you can get a fun rainbow. And the fun thing about doing it for something like pages read is that it's not this kind of gradient, right? It's not the same kind of rainbow. It'd be much more random, which I like random a lot. I model it after my bookshelves, and my bookshelves are very higgledy-piggledy. Like I just kind of put books in all different ways. They're falling over. They have little knickknacks in it. And so I put a knickknack on every shelf as opposed to my last one that did not have as many knickknacks because people really love the knickknacks. And I might release another knickknack expansion pack before the end of the year, but I'm not guaranteeing that. I do have some things in the works, but I'm not guaranteeing that. So this is the 2022 cross stitch temperature library pattern. There will be an embroidery pattern, but I'll talk about that at the end. I'll talk about that later. That is not being released on Friday. So this will be released on Friday, and January is at the top, December is at the bottom, and I will have kind of all that information in the pattern so that you, and in the listing on Etsy. So you'll see that. And then the final one is the secret temperature pattern. And that is a bar shelf. So basically every day you get to fill up a new drink and you have knickknacks. And this was inspired by Chevis of Chevy Rel podcast, which I'll link down below, and also my mom. Both of them like a nice cocktail. And so it just kind of came to me that this would be a really fun stitch. And I'm going to stitch this one in cross stitch next year. The sign is in honor of Chevis and her Grab Yo Drank. That's in honor of her. And I am using it with permission. I did get permission. I am planning on making other, like at least 2 other sign options. If you don't watch her podcast or if you want something else on there, you can have an option for, I'll have 2 other sign options. Oh, for the temperature library, use book. And for the drink library, the drink shelves, use drink. So your options are Merple, Thornback, book, drink. So those are the 4 patterns that I'm giving away. I'll be drawing it next Friday, which is also the release date of these patterns. You can enter for all 4 of the patterns, but you will only win 1. So 1 winner per pattern and 1 pattern per winner. So that is my new pattern reveal and giveaway. And I hope that you all are as excited about these patterns as I am, because I really love them. I am donating a temperature pattern, a kitted temperature pattern minus fabric, because everyone likes doing things on their own fabric. And so I didn't, and it would have just been kind of a standard Michael's bought fabric or craft store bought Aida, essentially, is what I would send with it. So I'm donating a pattern plus all the floss plus a needle minder plus needles plus a thread card and a bag of some kind to the auctions that are currently going on Instagram for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit folks. So keep an eye on Michelle G. Bendy Stitchy's Instagram in October for that auction. If you're interested in getting a kitted up, mostly kitted up version of one of the temperature patterns, because I'm donating that. So keep an eye out if you're interested. I am planning on making a freehand embroidery version of the temperature library for 2022, but that will not come out until November 1st because I have kind of a big plan. I plan on stitching the drink shelves and the embroidered version of the temperature library because I want to do a different stitch for every day. And it's going to be #365stitchproject. And I'm really excited about that. But what I want to do is I want to actually plan it out and have essentially a Google sheet that anyone can look at that has a list of all of the stitches that I'm going to use for every day. That's the plan. And that way, if somebody wants to join in with me, you can do that. I may offer tutorials, or I will link to tutorials that already exist for the stitches that have tutorials and make tutorials for the stitches that don't have tutorials. On a similar note, the Royal School of Needlework, which is a needlework school, as the name suggests, in the UK, is just released like yesterday or 2 days ago, a stitch bank of 150 different stitches with directions. I will link that down below, but that will be really helpful for my 365 stitch project. So I kind of already have 100, well, I can't use all those stitches. Not all stitches are good for filling in boxes, so I can't use them all, but it's a good start. I'm pretty excited about that. So I'll link that down below if anyone's interested in checking that out, because that's pretty cool. And their lofty goal is to record every different kind of stitch on Earth in every culture, which is an amazing goal, and I'm super excited about it. For now, there are 150 stitches in there, and I'm gonna kind of tap into that, and also I'm gonna tap into the different books and journals and magazines that I've been kind of accumulating, both as gifts from my friends, my stitchy friends, and also gifts from my husband and things that I've purchased to kind of fill out the other 215 stitches. So anyway, that is what's happening with the embroidered version of the temperature library. That should be coming out. As of now, my plan is November 1st, but that, you know, part of plans and subject to change if things get wild here. I think I want to talk about Happy Mail because I received an amazing textile gift for my wedding. I have some cousins who live in Italy. They live in Abruzzo, and they weren't able to come to the wedding, but they sent me this beautiful package. So this is what the package outside looked like. This is what it looked like when I opened it up. It smelled like roses, and it had that lavender sachet that I'm going to use for my sort of eye pillow, for my purple merple eye pillow. But it had these beautiful textiles in it that I want to show you. because we are a group of people who love textiles. So first of all, it had this lace in it. And this is just this is a beautiful embroidered lace that still smells like roses. There we go. So it had a lace in it. And this is a, you know, pinking sheared lace. So this was just kind of like in there. So I'm going to find something really lovely to do with that, I hope. It came with this table runner that looks crocheted, which also smells like roses. It all smells like roses. And it came with this embroidered and crocheted towels. And there are 2 larger towels and 2 smaller towels. And the amazing thing about this gift is that these were made, embroidered and made by my cousins. So it's my grandfather's cousin's daughter is Lydia, and her daughter is Anastasia, and Lydia's husband's Pepe. So Pepe's mother made these, which is so amazing. And I thought you would appreciate them, because look how beautiful this work is. I mean, this is like perfection, right? This is perfection. I hope you can see it. I think you can. So I don't know what we're going to use these for, but it's going to be something very special. So I wanted to show you that. I thought that you would enjoy seeing, you know, we love textiles here. So I thought you would enjoy that. All right, let's talk about haul. I mentioned 2 weeks ago that I was going to try and curb my craft spending. I have not done that. So I haven't bought any new fabric. I do have my floss of the month that came in from Color and Cotton that I will show you. And I did some thrifting to get things for my craft room and things for finishing. I dropped off a couple bags of stuff and I picked up a couple things. And then I've also started a new collection, which I'll talk about at the end. First, let's talk about Color and Cotton and the September floss of the month. And I get 5 colors, and here they are, and they are amazing. I love them. First is Autumn Gourd, which is a yellow to green, which does look like those yellow gourds with like the thing that comes out the top. If I can find a picture, I'll put it here, but it's like the yellow and green gourds. Anyway, it makes me happy. Avocado. Salamander, mulberry, and purple parrot. So here they all are all together, and I think that they are just a lovely grouping. Then, like I said, I did some thrifting. My new craft studio, my new art studio, is very colorful. My couch that I have in there is a bright red. I painted one of the walls teal, and it has a yellow dresser that I've had that was like my brother's from when he was like a little kid. So it's very colorful. And I found this iron napkin stand essentially, but I thought it would be good for kind of putting in things that I'm working on at the moment, you know. It could sit on my desk and it's good for papers or filing or whatever, but it's very heavy, so it'll be nice and sturdy. I can even put large projects in it and it won't fall over, which I like. So I got that. I'm sorry for the crinkling, but I got some corner shelves for my new shelving units. I got a little teal watering can, which is almost the same color as my wall. And I thought this would make a super adorable pincushion. Right? Adorable? I think it'd be adorable. Or a way to hold you, I don't know. But I think it'll be useful. So I got that. I got a colander. And you might be thinking, Christy, why are you showing us a colander? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to take off this bottom, and I always say that you can stitch on anything you can get a needle through, and I've been wanting to stitch on a colander for a while. And so this is in fact a stitching surface that will hang on my wall. But I do want to get this off. this bottom has like little feet. I want to get the feet off. But I'm really excited about this. I had been wanting to get one of the mesh ones, but I think this will be good for a cross stitch. So I'm going to kind of find a cross stitch pattern that I like, that I think would look really cute on this, and stitch it up and hang it on my wall because that makes me happy. They also had a ton of old cross stitch magazines. These were 5 for $3, so I got 10. And I got them, the ones I chose have little motifs in them, or have Christmas stitching in them, or have alphabets in them, because that's kind of what I've been looking for. So I got 10 of these. I'm not going to go through all of them, but they're from the late 80s and early 90s. And a lot of it's very dated and I'm never going to stitch it, but a lot of it is kind of not necessarily timeless, but at least not dated. I also got ones that have interesting ways of finishing things. So this is, I've been kind of interested in 3-dimensional cross stitch finishes. So I kind of like drums and biscornu, and this is a cat, stuffed cat. They also have a stuffed rabbit in here. So that kind of 3-dimensional finishing, I'm percolating some ideas for finishing. And then this one has an illuminated manuscript page, which of course, as a medievalist, I had to get because that's kind of amazing. And I actually want to stitch that basically as is. And if you look, she's stitching. So I kind of love this. And there's also like a little animals, and there's a little guy playing a little flute. Anyway, I love this, and I'm going to stitch this. So that's why I got this one. So that is what I got at the thrift store. And then I went to a local secondhand store, not a thrift store, but it's definitely a secondhand store that's right downtown. I walk my dog past this store almost every day, and they had some really interesting things in the window that I think, again, will be good for my new craft space and organizing and storing things. So the reason why I went in there is because this was in the window. And I thought that this would be an amazing way to store my tiny scissor collection in these like different holes. It worked okay. Here's a picture that I posted on Instagram of this idea. And it worked okay, but it worked better on the ones that were leaning out so that way they could go out. A lot of, like this one here, it kind of, the scissors flopped in a bit. So I need to tweak how I want to do it. But I got this. This is why I went in there. Oh, and then the inside could be either a bowl that you can put notions and stuff in, or it could be like a giant pincushion. I've been really wanting to make pincushions, apparently. Clearly. That one's made out of porcelain. But then I saw a white milk glass that has a very similar feel and could also be a nice pincushion in the middle with scissors on the outside. So I'm going to have to experiment with these and see how they come. But I don't know. I thought that they were really cool and they make me happy. And I do think that they'll be nice like in my new space. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. They haven't come in yet, but I did also kind of start a new collection. One of the things that really drew me to Jody, Trixie Tricycle, who I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is a couple of weeks ago, more than a month ago now, I did a video about a Corticelli needlework journal that was gifted to me from 1899. I'll put a link to that up here. And Jody had, at like the same time, showed her collection of Corticelli thread. And I'll link to her channel down below. Apparently, this thought of that these silk threads and these different threads still exist out there has been percolating in my brain for however long, a month, 2 months. And I apparently decided to start a new collection of antique sewing kits using this thread, mostly this thread. So I, this week on eBay, bought like 7. And they're not that expensive, and they're beautiful. They're in like little boxes. I'll show them to you when they come in. There are 2 more that I'm watching, and then I think I'm going to not watch them anymore. But there are 2 more that I'm watching that are lovely. They come with little scissors and pins and pin cushions and needles. I mean, it's like basically what a woman in the 30s and 40s would take with her when she's traveling to mend her garments. And I love this idea because it's something that I think is beautiful that I can like have out in my stitchy area, and also something I can use because it's silk that is still good, right? I can still use it. And the scissors, I love scissors. Like I have a little scissor collection. I have this over here, right there isn't, where is it? I'm so bad at pointing. There we go. This right here is antique scissors. They're Victorian scissors that I bought. And honestly, I got these whole kits with everything in them for the price that I would pay for a pair of scissors, and they have scissors in them. So anyway, when I have an idea, I do kind of get obsessed. So I got a little bit obsessed with these little scissors, these little sewing kits this week. I'm not unhappy about it though, right? Like I am not regretting any of the ones that I got. I got 7 of them for less than $100. And in fact, the 2 other ones that I want to get would still be under $100. So as far as collections go, I think that that's okay. But anyway, I was a little bit enabled and inspired to start a new collection. So you'll see that when they come in, as they trickle in whenever they get here. Some of them will be here by the next video, and I'll show you. I guess I want to talk about plans. I have a lot of plans. By next week, I want to, and this is like a week, by next week, I want to finalize all those patterns and get my Etsy store organized. I want to fully finish both of my cross stitch projects so I can take good pictures for these PDFs and for Etsy, for the Etsy listings. I want to build my new art studio and get that organized so that way I have kind of a dedicated place to work on my art, which would make me very happy. And like I said, the shelving came in today, so after I finish this, I'm going to go work on that. And I had mentioned this a couple times, but I plan on October 1st, starting a new Cosmic Egg by Hildegard of Bingen. Those of you who've been with me for a while remember Hildegard, my Cosmic Egg. Here's a picture of what the finished object looked like. I started that last year on October 1st, and I ended up selling it to a friend of mine for her a friend of mine for his wife, who is also a friend of mine's, birthday back in May or June. And I really want one. And so I'm going to make myself another one. Hildegard of Bingen was a 12th century mystic, and I did a whole video about her, which I will link to up here if you want to check her out. She was amazing. She's my favorite medieval person, and there were a lot of medieval people, and she's my favorite medieval person. So, and this is my favorite image from the Middle Ages, and I want to do it again. So I'm starting that on the 1st. I have other plans that I want to do, but I don't think that they'll happen in the next week. So I'll talk about them next week. My long-term plans, though, I do want to talk about. I am feeling like I want to shift away from cross-stitching as a medium and back into embroidery and embroidery experiments and textile experiments. I haven't done any of those in a while, and I'm feeling like, especially with this new space, that I'm really going to want to do that. So I think for the rest of the year, through the end of December, I'm going to focus more on my freehand embroidery and textile experiments and my embroidery experiments. I do have a couple of ornaments that I want to, that I have to make because I'm part of an ornament exchange. There will be 2 ornaments, and I do plan on cross stitching on that strainer, on that colander, so that'll be cross stitch. But I think I'm not going to have as much cross stitch content, so I hope that doesn't lose you all. I will get back to cross stitching and designing and stuff like that in the new year, but I think for my own kind of creative outlet, I really am, I have so many ideas that I really want to do that aren't cross stitch. So they'll still be textile and embroidery. So I hope you'll stick around, but I understand if you don't. I mean, it happens, right? I'm a small fish. So I accept my small fishness in the Flosstube world and just kind of do the things that make me happy, because that's what this is all about, is making me happy. And what will make me happy is weird experiments. I have fun things in my brain that need to come out of my brain. And I will show you them. They will come out to you all, these weird things in my brain. So next week, I will have another floss tube. I usually do it every 2 weeks, but I'm going to do another floss tube next Friday to the winners of the giveaway. Show you my floss tube, show you my Hildegard start and whatever else I've stitched this week. The other thing I want to work on that you haven't seen in a while, so this is kind of a long-term plan as well, is I want to finish my Lindy Stitches Hedgehog House quilt that I started for Stitch Mayhem. This is what it will look like kind of pieced together. This is kind of it laid out. This is what it looks like right now. I'm stitching it by hand. I'm piecing it by hand. And it's going to be a wall hanging that's going to hang behind on the wall above the couch in my new stitchy room. And I keep pointing this way because the other tiny house is right there. So that's why I keep pointing that way. So I want to finish this by the end of the year, and hopefully before. I want to have this done, and that would make me very happy. And then I do plan on stitching this as like a quilt tag, essentially a quilt tag, a quilt label. I'm going to stitch this and put it on the back. So that is another of my kind of long-term plans. And I think that's all my stitchy content. So if you don't want to hear about my book update, this is a very long video. I knew it would be. But if you don't want to hear about my book update, then, and talk about medieval marriage sermons, which is more interesting than it sounds, I promise, then thanks for joining me, and I will see you next week for my next floss tube. Those of you who are sticking around, and those of you who are new, I am a medieval historian, and I'm writing a book that I've been working on for a while, and I made a video about the book and why I'm talking about it in my floss tube. I got to work on it this week. Well, I mean, work on it in a way. I did a lot of reading this week. This week, I read 7 articles and a book. And I want to talk about the book that I read because the book is called Medieval Marriage Sermons, Mass Communication in a Culture Without Print. Because in the Middle Ages, and this is by D.L. de Vray, in the Middle Ages, most people couldn't read. And so mass communication took place orally, and in particular, it took place in the church, in sermons. So you would have the mass, but you'd also have a sermon. You'd have the mass in Latin, but you'd have a sermon in the vernacular. And the sermon would teach the congregation how to be a good Christian, essentially, right? That's like the job. That's the point. How to be a good person, how to be a good Christian. One of the sermons that was done during Epiphany was the marriage at Cana, which was the water into wine miracle, where Mary, the Virgin Mary, is invited to a wedding, and Jesus goes along, and they run out of food and wine. And so Jesus turns water into wine and creates loaves of bread. I'm pretty sure this is where one of the places he turns water into wine. And I think it's his first miracle. So this book is really interesting because it gives you the actual sermons. He has a second book that came after this that is like his discussion of medieval marriage based on these sermons. But this is just the sermons. And I kind of love them because they look at marriage as a metaphor. So actual marriage, but also marriage as a metaphor. So the idea of marriage as a metaphor was used not just for like 2 people getting married, but it was also the marriage of the 2 aspects of Jesus. So his divinity and humanity combined was like a marriage. You have the marriage between Christ and the church. So that's considered a marriage. And then the 4th kind of marriage is the marriage between the soul and eternity in heaven. Right, or the soul and heaven for eternity. So because of that, medieval marriage was indissoluble. You could not get a divorce. You could kind of separate households, which is what I look like. I look at these court cases, but you couldn't separate because it's a sacrament. You can't end it. You can't end a marriage and then get remarried unless your spouse dies. The spiritual aspect of marriage is the reason for that. Anyway, so these sermons are really interesting, and I enjoyed reading them immensely, and I'm definitely going to talk about them in my book. So I wanted to bring this up to you. This is not a book that you can just, I mean, I don't even know if it's available anymore, but if you have an academic library near you, you might be able to get it. You can interlibrary loan it. That's what I had to do. But it's Medieval Marriage Sermons, and it just has different sermons that were given about marriage. And the interesting thing about Medieval Marriage Sermons is that the religious people, so the friars and preachers who preach these sermons, really viewed marriage as a union of equals, right? In front of God, men and women are equal, not so much in actual practice, but in, so like adultery, for example, in medieval popular culture, male adultery was not as bad as female adultery, right? So female adultery was like the worst. Male adultery was okay. But in the church, in these sermons, male adultery is just as bad as female adultery, because you're essentially sinning against God, right? Because of these different levels of marriage, these different the spiritual connection with marriage is the same for both men and women. And so husbands straying was just as bad as wives straying, and I really like that. Post-production Christy here. One of the things that I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention about these sermons is that there is a lot of misogynistic writing in medieval religious texts, especially ones that were meant for other religious people. But what DeVray and others found is that when it came to sermons and other writings that women would hear, there wasn't these misogynist ideas. They kind of were removed. So women who were hearing these sermons basically weren't told that they were terrible, weren't told that they were sinful. They were told that they were human and that they and their husbands could both sin. And I find that very interesting. That's where I am with my book. And this coming week, I have more reading to do. In fact, I've been planning my next day's reading the day before. I'm going to start, I work from Sunday to Thursday. That's kind of how I work. So I have my reading laid out for tomorrow, and I'm pretty excited to get into it. I think this next week is going to be a lot more reading. That's kind of where I am, because I need to get myself up to date on the current literature in my field, since it's been a while since I've done that. So I really need to make sure that I need to make sure I know what's being said, basically, because I don't want to look stupid when I release this book and someone's like, oh yeah, that's obvious. I don't want that. I also have copy edits for an article that I have coming out and that I just got, and those are due on the 1st. So I need to work on those this week too. So that is another thing that's going to take time away from this project. A little bit of time. And I think that's all I have to say to you today, which is good because my voice is going. It's a very long one. I hope it's not too long. It's been a very busy couple of weeks for me, both stitching and work-wise. So I wanted to make sure that I updated you. I want to thank you all for joining me today and sticking with it. I want to thank you for subscribing. And if you liked what you heard and are excited to see my new experiments and my new stitching, then please subscribe. I'd love to have you stick around. So I will see you next week. And in the meantime, please take good care of yourselves and have a good one. Bye.